Was the exclusivity deal that Redacted was trying to make with Nano considered bad? Well, the easy but yet complicated answer is yes and no. And I'll be talking about that in this video. This video is going to have chapters, and everything I'll be covering in this video has already been covered. Also, this video is going to be exceptionally biased because I'm injecting my own personal opinion and personal interpretation of this exclusivity deal regarding the Sinder situation. So, for clarity's sake, I'm going to read the full convo that occurred on January 15th, 2025, the date that Redacted tried to make an exclusivity deal with Nano. And then I will be breaking down the exclusivity deal after reading the full convo. So, yeah, with that being said, let's jump right into it. So, we are in Nano's doc, and before we begin, I'd like to let you know that the screenshots in Nano's doc, Silvervale's doc, and Bao's doc are all out of order, and to get the full story, I will have to be jumping from doc to doc, because that's just how they decided to make it. Totally not in order, but we'll try and connect the dots here. So, the convo starts at 6:48 p.m. on January 15th, 2025, with Redacted saying, if you wanted to have some kind of model exclusivity, what would you need to make that sustainable for you? Nano, maybe you can share one of your ideas and I can check what I think. Nano, okay, so I got some ideas for this, I guess. Redacted, I was driving, what are you thinking? Nano, okay, so asked help from my friends, they don't know it's UDW, so a monthly fee, calculating my monthly earnings. Also, how long would this be, and if this counts for models I already worked on? Redacted, well, I think the main things we're looking for are for you not to take on any brand new model clients and to not make any new models outfits with Silvervale again. You'd still be able to work on models outfits with all of your existing babies, and your artwork comms wouldn't be affected. One of our concerns is that more nano babies means nano models don't have the same value anymore, and second is that there's a few people that we would just rather not be able to have a model from you. Maybe not any new babies at all. The reason why I brought this up is that there has been a lot of bias with another one of our partners with certain creators, and we'd rather these creators not have what makes Sinder unique, which is your artwork, just drama. The convo continues up here, by the way, because like I said earlier, these screenshots are not in order. Nano, of course, I wanted to understand it better, especially if I cancel her for the second time, lol. Redacted, well, with blank, she's given a lot of bias and priority at GS, sometimes over Sinder, and we can't really confront them about it. Plus, she's gone 3D lately. Before we continue, this screenshot is edited because, guess what? In Bao's doc, the same screenshot, but there's a sentence missing from Nano, so screenshot tampering. Fun. Blank hurt one of our friends pretty bad, and I can't really say much more than that since it's not my drama to get into. Bouncing back to Nano's doc, Bao has been getting on her nerves for a while. She hijacked her YouTube editor a while ago, and it's constantly picking up artists that we work with. We've gotten to know her better being friends with her, but she really rubs us the wrong way with the things she does. We wanted to try and safeguard our most important artists from her, so she's already taken our editor, and I don't mean taken like he doesn't work with us anymore. He does, but he has to dedicate time for her now, and sometimes that gets in the way of her projects. Also, one of Bao's MV editors is the one that did the Boss Rush MV, and we're 99% sure she told him not to do any more with us, but like a model art is the most important thing. That's a VTuber's entire image. So that is an 8:34 p.m. Then we go here. 8:42 p.m. same day. Redacted, we love working with you. Sinder wouldn't be Sinder without Nano, but okay, but let me tell you the tea about the MV thing. Bao had original songs last year that had MVs by her editor, and the songs flopped. Her editor met us at TwitchCon and was saying that he'd love to work with us, practically jumping through hoops to get something planned. We managed to have him squeeze in the Boss Rush MV between his work with Bao. He says that he loved working on it and is super excited to work on the next MV project. Boss Rush's song blows up. He's credited as the editor. I asked him when he's free to do the next project. All of a sudden, he changes his mind and is only working with Bao going forward. No explanation. Nanoless, suspicious Pepe emote. Redacted. There's some context missing since we know how Bao is behind the scenes, but basically we don't have an MV editor now for our next Boss Rush project. We think Bao got pissed that her editor and did an original song MV for her friends without her knowing, and did it 100 times better than her original songs last year that she locked him up so no one else could work with him, and then had him make it public on Twitter that he was only working with her going forward, like a literal announcement tweet. Then you have to go to Bao's doc to go here. Yeah, here it is. Nano, oh shit. Yeah, Redacted says, Nano, okay, that's super weird, Redacted. Shows Sacramore's tweet, anonymously in-house, as in, will never be credited publicly so no one knows who does this work for Bao. Nano, oh, it's literally it, lol. Redacted, that just literally reads like a hostage note. I asked to be anonymous since I'd like to be separate from being known as a freelancer. No one does this. No one decides to do this on their own. This was 2 weeks after Boss Rush came out. Nanoless, yeah, it's just pretty weird, lol. Oh, by the way, Sakamore did that of his own volition, so Redacted's wrong there. There's like a whole thing with that. But anyway, now we've done that, we have to go back here, and then Redacted says, and on 8:52 p.m. and now she's been barking up the tree of one of our LTD animators, so like NU and a nano model, Nanoless. Yeah, looking for me on sus for sure, Redacted. It's so annoying. IDK man, Analyst. Oh, Redacted. She has a way of guilt tripping people to get her way. Okay, now we go back to the exclusivity deal, which is right here. What about we can pay blank for you and you don't have to discount it for the next payment, and we'll continue giving you lots of model work, I think about for this year right now, but you don't work with, and if we go to Silvervale's doc, Bao, Blank, or Silver at all again, models are art. I don't think you've done anything with Bao or Blank before. We also have another GS label for you too, the AFK. Is there any way to add a little bit more since Silver still asks for art every now and then? Redacted, we could do it like when Silver asks for art, you tell her no, and then tell us to buy another art piece, like, so you still get a job from it. And then going back to Bao's doc, because this is already convoluted as is. There it is. So this is the, oh nope, that's the wrong one. Here it is. Okay, so this is the message that was cut off here. If you look closely, there's a cut off message here. Now, if you go to Bao's doc, you can see this Nanoless at 9:05 p.m. It do be fair, but okay, can I ask for Demon Cinder figure? Okay, and that concludes the convo that occurred on January 15th, 2025 regarding the exclusivity deal. I read that for clarity, so we know what actually occurred that day versus the out-of-order screenshots that Nano, Bao, and Silvervale's docs show. Okay, now, going into the exclusivity deal here. So we're going to read Nanoless's whole thing here. She says, in the messages below, they mentioned wanting an exclusivity contract, but they didn't want to pay for exclusivity, but rather when a creator from their blacklist comes asking for a commission, they would guarantee me model work for Sinder only, and if anyone asked me for commissions, they'd commission me instead to compensate for not working with other creators. This felt very strange given that one of the accusations they made was overworking their editor, yet their solution to me working with other creators was for them to essentially overwork me to keep me from working on other projects. Okay, so let's look at something real quick. So this is what bothers me. In the message below, they messaged wanting an exclusivity contract, but they didn't want to pay for exclusivity. Okay, and this is in comment to what Redacted said here. We could do it like when Silver asks for art, you tell her no, and then tell us to buy another art piece, like so you still get a job from it. So the thing here is that they do want to pay for exclusivity, because an exclusivity deal basically makes it to where two parties work with each other better. In fact, before we continue, let me bring up what an exclusivity deal is. An exclusivity agreement is a legal contract where one party agrees to grant another party exclusive rights within a specific scope for a set period, preventing them from dealing with competitors. This can involve exclusive rights to negotiate, distribute, market, or manufacture products, among other things. Essentially, it restricts one party from engaging with others, fostering a focused relationship during the agreement's term. Hence, when Nano asked, like, how long this would be here, saying, like, how long this would be, she mentions that right there. Now, some key aspects for exclusivity deals is exclusive rights, scope and duration, purpose, and common in various contexts. So they are frequently used in M&A, transactions, distribution agreements, licensing agreements, and joint ventures. So yeah, and they also show examples of that as well. So, and then they also talk about benefits such as focus on a specific relationship, protection of investments, a competitive advantage. So that's just what an exclusivity deal does. It just, two parties come together, make an agreement, and it creates benefits for both parties. So that's the thing there. But here, Nano is Redacted and Sinder. Well, Redacted, since Redacted does solve this, most of the communication is shown in Cinder's apology here, where she states, in regards to Nanoless, for the majority of the time working with her, Red was the one almost solely doing communication with new plans and negotiations through his private DMs. So Redacted's the one doing this. So in general, the fact that Redacted made it to where if Silver asks for art, you say no, and then we buy an art piece from you, to me, in my brain, I'm like, that's exclusivity. That means that they're willing to pay you for work. It's like guaranteed work. If Silvervale asks you for art, say no, and we pay you for you to make us art. That's exclusivity. So Redacted is wanting to pay for exclusivity because they want Nano exclusively for themselves in this exclusivity deal. Now, I shouldn't say that. They want Nano to work with them more than other people. That's better to say. Because here, in it, Redacted says, you'll still be able to work in Monolith with all of your existing babies, and your artwork comms wouldn't be affected. So, it doesn't exclude everyone. It only excludes a certain group of individuals. So, there's that. So, and then the thing here that throws me off is this statement. This felt very strange given that one of the accusations they made was overworking their editor. But like when I actually glanced through all the screenshots, I don't remember seeing Redacted saying that in the screenshots about overworking their editor. Did they? Feel free to correct me. I don't remember seeing it in there. If it is, feel free to correct me in there. I don't know. And then their solution to me working with other creators was to essentially overwork her to keep her from working on other projects. The whole overworking thing, were they? Because the thing here, when that statement rubs me the wrong way, because if you look at the convos between Sinder and Nano, here, she states on February 11th, 2025, 10:39 p.m., but I would never give Silver any priority over you. Also, they're not even in any model for her being discussed. I just want to sleep clear-minded. And if you're wondering if it is Silvervale, you can actually go to the doc here. Silvervale's doc, you can see that it's not censored, but here it's like, And then if you go to this convo from November 26th, 2023, so like 2 years ago from 2025, Nano even says, I told Red that even though I have my other works, we'll always have a way to get you a priority spot when possible. So, I don't know why she's saying overworking when she literally says, hey, I will make sure to try and give you a priority spot. So I feel like this one rubs me the wrong way. The fact that she's saying, oh, they're trying to overwork me. And I don't see any evidence of that whatsoever. It's just them making an exclusivity deal. And so they go on to say this, that Redacted says that the more models she makes, the less valuable her existing models become. And that is more of like a supply and demand thing. So if you look here, it's an economics thing actually. In economics, this concept is explained by the law of supply and demand. When there's a lot of a particular product or service, high supply, but not many people want it, low demand, the price of that item tends to decrease. So if, by Redacted's logic, if there are more nano babies out there, the value of it decreases, because if everyone has a nano model, then why would you go and get a nano model? Or something along those lines. In fact, Google AI goes on and talks about perceived value. If something is readily available, it loses its sense of scarcity and exclusivity, making people perceive it as less valuable. Think of a rare limited edition item compared to something mass-produced. The rarity contributes to the perception of higher value. So it's perceived value. That is Red's mindset. Now, in this case, I personally think that they had their view wrong, because Nano is one artist, and many people want her art, meaning that low supply, high demand, prices for the supply would increase. It'd be the opposite of this. That's what I think, but that was what was going through Redacted's mind when thinking about the more nano babies they are, the less value her work is. That's still a thought process when it comes into supply and demand, so Yeah, whether you believe it's right or wrong, that's up to you. I'm just saying that I personally think that they were wrong because Nano is one artist and there's tons of VTubers that want her art. So low supply, high demand, prices are high. So that means the value of her work is higher. That's how I see it. But that's up to you guys to decide. Anyway, that was the whole thing with that one. So that isn't some willy-nilly thought process. That is literally an economics thing. It's the law of supply and demand. So one of the things about that. And then she goes on to say, following screenshot is of them setting up the blacklist, saying that I'm not allowed to work with any new clients or create any outfits. They're saying that because they're setting up the terms and conditions. Also, there is no blacklist being set up because blacklisting is basically telling someone, hey, you violated a policy or a rule, you have lost the opportunity to use our services, and usually that's done without consent. So why would you tell Nanoless about the blacklist? It doesn't make sense, and the screenshots that she provides, if you read them, they don't Redacted doesn't even outright blacklist people. He's just setting up the terms and conditions for the exclusivity deal. And then the next thing is that she says, the idea that my work as an artist and designer is devalued by working with other people is insane and hurtful. After realizing what taking a deal with them would really mean for both my workload and my mental health, I backed out. Okay, I would like to put out that she did in fact back out, but the fact that she says after realizing what taking a deal with them would really mean, both my workload and my mental health, she backed out. This one kind of rubs me the wrong way. And here's why. Because if you go to Bao's doc, she literally thinks the exclusivity deal is fair. She literally says it right here at 9:05 p.m. on January 15, 2025. It do be fair, but okay, can I ask for a Demon Cinder figure? So she thought it was fair. So she says it's insane and hurtful, but she's thought the exclusivity deal is fair, so okay. And in terms of her backing out, there is proof. She does provide proof of this, but you have to go to February 11th, 2025, 7:18 p.m. for that. She goes on to say, Cinder just wanted to say sorry for stepping back on the exclusivity deal. Wanted to apologize personally to you since I've only talked about that with Red, but I just don't want to be dragged on any personal issues like that. After all, Silver's still a client, and it makes me anxious and kind of destroys my mental to do this kind of deal. So, yeah, she does say it's a mental thing. So, yeah, and she says, just wanted to let you know, I still love working with you and Red, but I'll understand if things don't work out because of Silver. I just love my clients, that's all. And again, you can find this here. It's uncensored in Silver's doc, but she does say that, so that does prove that she backed out. It still rubs me the wrong way, though, because she does say it's fair. But to be fair, that she does provide evidence. She's like, oh, I need to back out. She stepped back from the exclusivity deal. So one of two things happened here, and these are just assumptions I've made myself. One is she never accepted it to begin with and stepped back from it. The second one is she initially accepted it, but like she said, after realizing what it would mean for her workload and her mental health, she backed out. So either she took it and backed out, or she just never accepted it entirely. So those are the two things I get from that. So that's just looking and analyzing the statements that she made about exclusivity and blacklisting other creators. Now, I've kind of just gone on a tangent here and just explained kind of the foundation of this exclusivity deal, but that still doesn't answer the question that I posed earlier. Was the exclusivity deal bad? And again, the complicated answer is yes and no. And the reason why I say that is because exclusivity deals aren't inherently good or bad. That's the main thing. Exclusivity deals aren't inherently good or bad. Their impact depends on the specific context and how they're structured. And the potential benefits of an exclusivity deal is secured access to products or services, meaning that if you go into an exclusivity deal with a company, it is guaranteed work, guaranteed supply, guaranteed cooperation. You can get a competitive advantage, stronger partnerships and investments, protection during acquisitions. So, like, there's a lot of benefits that could come from exclusivity deals. But there are some drawbacks as well, such as limited flexibility and missed opportunities, increased dependence and risk, potential for higher prices and reduced innovation, and then there's the antitrust and legal concerns. The key considerations when making an exclusivity deal is the scope and duration, market impact, and negotiation. And to finalize this, according to Google AI, ultimately, the decision to enter into an exclusivity deal should be based on a thorough evaluation of its potential benefits and drawbacks in the context of the specific business relationship and marketing conditions. Consulting with legal professionals is crucial to ensure that the agreement is reasonable, enforceable, and compliant with relevant regulations. So, yeah, exclusivity deals by themselves aren't inherently good or bad, but here's one thing that exclusivity deals have, and is just part of their being, and it's that exclusivity deals require consent. Yes, exclusivity deals and clauses within contracts generally require the consent of both parties involved. That means that if one party doesn't agree, then the deal falls out. This consent signifies that both parties voluntarily and willingly agree to the terms and conditions outlined in the agreement, including any restrictions on their ability to engage with competitors or alternative opportunities. Here's why consent is crucial: foundation of contracts, voluntary agreement, and understanding of terms. And Google AI goes on to say, exclusivity clauses can significantly impact a business's operations choices, so it's essential for both sides to fully understand and agree to the terms. If consent is obtained through coercion, duress, fraud, or misrepresentation, the exclusivity deal or contract containing the clause may be deemed invalid or unenforceable. So, you can't manipulate someone into taking the exclusivity deal. It has to be consent from both parties. And the thing here is that, remember, Nanoless thought the exclusivity deal was fair. So she wasn't manipulated into this exclusivity deal. She even entertained it by going back and forth in terms of the exclusivity deal. She even says, how long would this be? She was entertaining the idea. She was talking to Redacted about it. So she did see that it was fair because she asked for a demon Sinder figure, as shown here. So, now, what would have happened if the exclusivity deal had gone through? Now, going back to Silvervale Doc, we know for certain that the two people involved was Bao and Silver. So, what would have happened if the exclusivity deal had gone through? Well, according to the terms and conditions of Redacted, they don't work with Bao, and Nanoless doesn't work with Bao or Silver at all again, and if Silver asks for art, Nano would say no, and then Redacted would buy an art piece from Nano, essentially giving her work. So it's guaranteed work, guaranteed income. That's the thing. So it's a plus on Nano because that basically means, oh, I have guaranteed income, I have guaranteed work, I don't have to worry about trying to find someone, I have guaranteed work and income. That's the big thing here. However, it is a bad on Bao and Silver because now they have no access to Nanoless's amazing art, which, let's be fair, Nanoless's art is pretty dang good. So, yeah, no, wouldn't have had access to the art. And the third person, which I can't see who that is. I'm not going to make assumptions or anything. So these three people would not have access to Nano's art. That's the bad side. Now, if that were the case, if Bao, Silver, and that third person was barred from receiving Nanoless's art, what would happen then? If they couldn't have access to Nanoless's art, you know what they could do? They could go and support other artists willing to make VTuber models. And guess what? According to Google, yes, there are many artists willing to create VTuber models. You can find them on platforms like Twitter, Fiverr, ArtStation, and through direct commissions. Many artists specialize in different styles and levels of complexity, from simple PNG tubers to intricate live 2D models. And goes into detail of where you can find them. There's VGen, there's Instagram, there's Reddit, and then they even go into detail about things to consider like cost, style, rigging, reference sheet, communication license. And there's even, there's a bunch of references here. But the point of the matter is that if that exclusivity deal had gone through with Redacted and Nano, Bao and Silver and that third person wouldn't have access to Nanoless's art, which is a bad. But then they would have to go to other VTuber models and support them to have them make them their models, thus encouraging competition. So that's the big thing. And exclusivity deals aren't inherently sabotage, because the only way exclusivity deals are sabotage, which we can type it in real quick, exclusivity deals considered sabotage. So if you go through what Google says about exclusivity deals considered sabotage, they go into detail saying like foreclosure and of competition, creating barriers to entry, exploiting market dominance. And then they have examples, they have a legal perspective, but at the end of it, they state, in essence, while exclusivity deals can have legitimate business justifications like encouraging marketing, support, or preventing free riding, they can cross the line to sabotage when they are used to unfairly exclude competitors, restrict market access, and ultimately harm consumers by limiting choices or raising prices. So that's how exclusivity deals could be considered sabotage. But here's the thing. Nanoless is not the only VTuber artist that Bao and Silvervale use. So that's the thing. If basically exclusivity deals would be considered sabotage if it literally almost eliminates them from the market or scene. But in this case, if the exclusivity deal had gone through, Bao and Silvervale could just reuse their models and go to other artists to get another model. That exclusivity deal that Redacted is trying to make with Nano wasn't trying to kick them out of the VTuber space. If it was, then I would say it's sabotage. But some people can argue that it's unfair because if you go to Sinder's apology, when she talks about the exclusivity deal, she states that she was only aware of it being about one person who she was unfairly pursuing, which was Silvervale. Now, the thing is that exclusivity deals are a legal thing to use in businesses to ensure benefits for parties involved in an exclusivity deal. So, yeah, and also, if the exclusivity deal had ultimately removed Silvervale from the space or made it hard for her to be in the VTuber space, then I would consider that sabotage. But this exclusivity deal wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. It just bars her from Nano, but she has all these other artists. So back to what I was saying earlier. Bao and Silvervale doesn't solely rely on Nanoless to make their models. In fact, I looked up who made their models. Right here. So here, when I type in who made Silvervale's model, Google found somewhere online that Silvervale's 3D model was designed by Yoshi, and the setup was done by Baffler. Genomu also contributed significantly to the model, ensuring it closely resembled her 2D design. The model is an MMDS model, and it's noted for its intricate details and features like flowy hair, a floppy hat, and cute shoes. And then I went into further detail here, where I said who made Silvervale's model over the years, and Google says Silvervale's models have been created by multiple individuals. And then for a more detailed breakdown, they list some of the people that helped with Silvervale's models, like JJ Inomu, Kim, Yoklesh, aka Silvervale's mama, and Yoshi. And if you go to the, what is this? The WikiTuber? Yeah, Wikitubia. If you go to her design, her character designer is JJ Nomu. Her second model was made by Yoklesh. Her third model was made by Nanoless and rigged by Kevin X. So the thing is, as you can see here, Silvervale doesn't necessarily rely on Nanoless. She has other artists that she can go to. In fact, there's multiple artists willing to make VTuber art. So that exclusivity deal would not have prevented Silvervale from doing her job, would not have kicked her out of the VTuber space. So this exclusivity deal is not as bad as people made it out to be. Now, I went and asked about who made Bao's model. And here, Google says Bao's Live 2D model was illustrated by Haya Mafer and Arucelli and rigged by Brian Sui. The design was initially found on Pinterest and purchased, then revamped by Haya Mafer. Bao's overall design, reflecting her whale deity lore, features a pastel aesthetic with oceanic elements and was created to embody her ancient yet approachable nature as a VTuber, according to the Neurosama wiki. So that was that. And then I did the same thing. I went a step further. Who made Bao's model over the years? And here it says it again. Illustrated by Haya Mafer and Arucelli and rigged by Brian Sui. And then if you go to, what is it, the virtual YouTuber wiki, you can see the character designer 1.0 model design Arucelli, illustration Haya Mafer, Live 2D Brian Sui, 1.0 chibi illustration Aster, Live 2D Kiri, 2.0 model design We Need Us, illustration Haya Mafer, Live 2D Brian Sui, 2.0 chibi illustration Blue Nami, Live 2D Ariku, 3D model Yuli. Those are lots of artists. Nano's not even mentioned here. So, if the exclusivity deal had gone through, it would have benefited Nanoless because it was guaranteed work, guaranteed income. And yes, it would have been bad for Silvervale, that person, the third person, and Bao, because then they wouldn't have access to Nanoless's art. But that doesn't prevent them from being able to provide content. That doesn't prevent them, or that doesn't kick them out of the VTuber space. So, in essence, this exclusivity deal wouldn't have hurt them all that much, personally. That's what I think, anyway. I mean, sure, the argument of, hey, they have to reestablish that connection with an artist. That is true. But hey, they still have access to art. They can still ask for someone to commission their art. They can still ask for people to make their models. Their ability to get a VTuber model is not inhibited by this exclusivity deal. And if it was, it would be barely anything, personally, because they can go and ask someone else to, you know, make them their model and discuss the terms and conditions of that and all. As you guys see here, multiple artists made their models. They don't exclusively rely on Nanoless. So them being blocked by Nanoless doesn't really hurt them that much, as far as I can see with what I've looked up. So, yeah. And so, with that being said, oh, well, yeah, so what would have happened if the exclusivity deal had not gone through, right? Well, Nanoless could work with whoever she wants to work with, and Silvervale Bao and that third person could use Nanoless's art. And when you think about it, if the exclusivity deal had gone through, it would have encouraged competition. It would have encouraged VTubers to be like, oh, yo, there's like really cool artists out here to support that I can go to instead of Nanoless. If the exclusivity deal had gone through, it would have encouraged competition, which is a good thing. Supporting artists is good. So the exclusivity deal, there was a plus there. The only downside to the exclusivity deal being like accepted and gone through is that, oh no, Silvervale, Bao, and whoever doesn't have access to Nanoless's art. Okay, but according to their wikis, they've had other artists do their models for them other than Nano, so they have a pool of artists they can go to. In fact, like Google says, there's multiple artists out there willing to make VTuber models. And if the exclusivity deal didn't go through, well, like I said, Nano could work with whoever she wanted. She has the freedom of choice. And Silvervale, Bao, and whoever the third person was would have access to Nanoless's art. There is more pros to this than there are cons. So, what does this mean? It means, is the exclusivity deal in the Sinder situation bad? Complicated but simple answer, yes and no. And honestly, at the end of the day, the decision to decide whether or not it's good or bad lies with you, the viewer. I've already made my personal decision. I don't think it's bad, or that bad. But I'm not you, and you are your own person. And I encourage you to come to your own independent conclusion and decide for yourself, because you're an individual, and there's only one of you out there. You're literally one in a million. I am literally complimenting you. Now, with all that being said, everything I use for this video will be in the description below. I encourage you, the viewer, go to the source and for you to come to your own independent conclusion.